Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you my eyeshadow palette collection, which is super exciting because I love eyeshadow palettes. They're my favorite part of makeup. They're my favorite thing to collect. I definitely look forward to eyeshadow releases more so than any other thing in makeup. I feel like I could be way more creative with an eyeshadow palette than like a new foundation or something. So I love eyeshadows. I love talking about my favorite palettes. So I'm going to go into all of my palettes. I'm going to let you guys know which ones are my favorites, which I kind of regret buying or I just don't use very often. If you guys have any questions about any of the palettes that I show you, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I did declutter a bunch of eyeshadow palettes. I gave away a lot to my family over the holidays. So if you have questions about palettes that you may have seen in my collection before and I decluttered, just let me know about those as well. And if you guys want to see what eyeshadows I have in my collection, then just keep on watching. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly mention the palettes that I talked about in my everyday makeup drawer. I have the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea. This is the original one. And then I have the Semi-Sweet Chocolate Bar palette from Too Faced and the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. If you guys want to see what else is in this drawer, I'll leave that video linked down below, and I'll be talking about those palettes more throughout the month. But I'm going to move into my Alex drawers, and I just reorganized how I'm storing my eyeshadows. I'm going to start with the bottom drawer, and the bottom drawer has the eyeshadow palettes that I don't use as often as my main eyeshadows. So I'm going to start with these because a lot of them are limited edition or just palettes that I should probably start using in my everyday makeup drawers for future months. So right here I have the Lorac Mega Pro 2, which was limited edition last year. And I did want the Mega Pro 3, but because I don't use this palette that often, that's the only reason I didn't get the 3. So this one's a bit more cool tone, and I don't really use it that often, to be honest. I don't like bulky palettes as much. I just don't gravitate towards them, so I probably won't be buying these palettes in the future. The formula is awesome, but I just don't see myself using it very often. One palette that is a little bulkier that I really love and I still use, I think these might fall. So this is the Everything Nice palette from Too Faced. This was a holiday palette from 2014. I loved this palette to death. I love the blushes. They actually have the Papa Don't Peach blushes, the Chocolate Soleil, some highlighters, and I love all the shadows in here. This gold shadow is my favorite from Too Faced. It's like my favorite gold shadow of all time. They also have it in the natural palette, so I love this palette. I might not be getting holiday palettes in the future, but at the time that was a really good one. The quality is awesome. I also have the little mini chocolate bar palette that's all matte. I have a whole review on this. I'll link it below. Anything that I've reviewed, I'll just link below in like a eyeshadow palette playlist. Then I have the NYX Love Contours All palette, and this was limited edition, so I've actually probably only used it once. I have the Nikkie Tutorials palette. I did a review on this. I don't use it much anymore, but I actually really liked it over the summer. I know it's not like the most pigmented palette, but I really like the shade selection. Then also from Lorac, I have their Lorac 2 palette. This is one of the palettes that, this is actually I think my third high-end palette I ever got, and I wanted it just to get this blue shade because this is the first like matte blue shadow I had in my collection at the time because I wanted to do like a blue smoky eye for a Demi Lovato concert like 3 years ago. But I don't actually use this one too often because it is more cool tone. I like a lot of the neutral shades, but it's just like not bold enough for me. It's not very exciting compared to some of their other palettes. And I have the Carly Bible palette, which I like to use whenever I'm doing like drugstore or affordable tutorials. I'm really excited for her rose gold palette. And I have the holiday palette from Kylie Cosmetics, which I really liked over the holidays. I haven't used it as much lately because it's like a lot of darker shades, but I did 2 tutorials with it and I liked both the tutorials I filmed. Then I have the Gwen Stefani eyeshadow palette from Urban Decay, and I'm not a big fan of the Urban Decay eyeshadow formula, but I bought this because it said Gwen Stefani. I'm obsessed with her. I went to her concert recently. I just love her, so I wanted to get her palette because I love Gwen Stefani. I love makeup. But this is actually a really good neutral palette, but it's almost like too neutral if you like makeup a lot, if that makes sense. This is more for like an everyday makeup wearer that just has like 1 or 2 go-to looks. So I don't use it as often because I can't be like as creative with it. But it has actually really good shadows like for an everyday basis that you don't really have to think about. You can just get like simple, really nice neutral looks. I have the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. This is the only Naked palette I have. I do have the Naked Basics that I have in another drawer. But I don't use this as much either because it's more pink and cool tone. So it does have really pretty shadows, but the formula is nowhere near like Anastasia or even Too Faced shadows. They're just a lot more dry and chalky. But I'm definitely going to hold on to that palette. And then I have some of the other chocolate bar palettes. I have the original chocolate bar palette, the bulkier one that was released. I got this, I think, for Valentine's Day in 2014 maybe. So I've had it for a while. And I loved this palette to death. That gold shade I love to death. So I am a huge fan of this palette. I love it because it is like really neutral, but it's like very beginner friendly. And when I was like starting out with makeup, that's the palette I would use all the time. And then I have the Chocolate Bonbons palette. I have a tutorial from Valentine's Day last year that I did with this. And I actually really liked this palette. This is basically what I wish the Naked 3 palette was. It's just like more pigmented, has some more variety. So I do recommend this if you like cool tone shadows. I tend to go for warm tones, so that's why I don't use it as often, but the actual shades are really nice. So in the back I have, this is actually just a bronzer palette from Morphe. I have the 35 Rose Gold palette from Crown. I did a review and tutorial on this. Okay, and next I have a Morphe palette. It's a 35N palette, and this is just like a all neutral matte palette. And this is actually a pretty good palette. It's better than drugstore, but it's not as good as like Anastasia or Too Faced or anything. It's good for the price is basically what I feel about like Morphe and palettes like this. I'm probably not going to buy too many in the future, but I do plan on getting the Jaclyn Hill one. And then that's just a concealer palette by Morphe. It's not a eyeshadow palette. And then I also have the Shanna XO palette from BH. They sent this to me about a year ago, and I haven't used it since, I don't think. It's very similar to the original Kylie palette, I think, the bronze palette. And the shadows are pretty good, and it also has lip colors, but the lip colors are pretty not very good. So this is actually a pretty decent, affordable palette as well. So that's everything in this bottom drawer of the palettes that I don't use as often. I probably have to go through some of these and start using them more, especially in my everyday makeup drawer for the future. So I'm going to move into the drawer of all the palettes that I actually use a ton. So first I have this Pixie palette that is featured in a recent Get Ready With Me, and I've used it probably 2 more times since then, and I really like it. I really like the formula, the quality. It's very pigmented, it's very blendable. The only thing I don't like is that there's no base colors. The lightest shade is this one up here, and that's still like really dark. If you have fair skin, this is not an ideal palette. But all the shadows, the formula is actually really great from that Judy Time palette. So I just took off the packaging of this palette. It's a new palette I just received from The Balm, which I'm so excited to try because I've been wanting this for a while. And I have not tried this out yet. I'm really excited for it. It has a lot of shades that I really like. Some more darker shades, some more burgundy shades. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted on how I like that palette. Then I have the Kylie Peach palette. I actually really like it, and now the smell has completely faded. It doesn't swatch very great, but on the eyes it actually looks really nice. So I've used this several times. I've done a tutorial on my channel and also on Instagram using this. Every time I've used this palette, I like how my eyeshadow turns out. I don't have to make it work, so that's a good thing. So I do like that palette. So I have been really liking this palette. I'll get some more Kylie palettes in the future. I'm just going to be selective because I don't think it's like an outstanding formula, but I think that there are definitely good shadows. It is a little bit overpriced, but that's what it's going to be with Kylie Cosmetics. So I do like that palette. And then I have my ColourPop palettes. Guys, I really, really love these. I definitely recommend these eyeshadows. They are amazing. I did an eyeshadow tutorial with this palette on my Instagram, and I'll link that for you guys too, because every time I've used these palettes or any of their eyeshadows, the like look ends up really nice because they're just really creamy and really easy to blend out. And then my favorite palette is probably this one from Tarte. It's a Tartelette in Bloom palette. I love it. I've been using it nonstop. I got it at the VIB sale. You guys can see I put a dent in all the shimmer shades. I just have like really go-to looks with this palette. So I have been loving that a lot. I highly recommend it. And then over here, I'll move on to my other favorite. These are basically tied. The Tartelette in Bloom and the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette are my 2 favorite palettes of all time. I use this one all the time as well, you guys can tell. I did get it when it originally launched in March. I have several tutorials on my channel. I used it on my wedding day as well. I have that video. as well that I could link for you guys. So those are my two favorites. Then I have the Shadow Couture palette by Anastasia. This was a limited edition palette in 2014, I believe. And I actually loved this palette. It has some of my favorite Anastasia shades. Oh my god. Pink Champagne, I just turned it into a disaster, but that's my all-time favorite eyeshadow. You guys, like, there's such a big dent in that. And then also Morocco and Fudge are my other two favorite eyeshadows from Anastasia. I'll definitely purchase those as singles eventually. I think those are basically the shades I use from this palette, but that's why I love it, because those shadows alone were worth it to me. Then I have the Master Palette by Mario, which I really love too. I did a review on this as well, and I just spray my like shimmer shades in Fix Plus, and that's how I get so messy. So this looks so gross. I should have cleaned this before, but that's how loved it is. I really like this palette. It's an awesome neutral palette. I wish they would make it permanent. And I think I'm still torn between how much I like this compared to the Modern Renaissance. They're both amazing palettes. Then I have the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly palette, which I hope is still available. And I will definitely be getting the Peanut Butter and Honey. I am so excited for that palette as well. So I really loved this palette. It's more warm. I love this shade Peanut Butter Cup. It's so pretty on the lid. I like to do a halo eye with this on the outer corners and this in the center. This is just a really pretty palette. Then I have the Quad from Itsy Cosmetics with Ready Set Glamour. And I really like this quad. I haven't used it in a while because these shadows are actually so fragile that when I showed you guys my video on it, this shadow broke and shattered everywhere and I had to press it back in the pan. So I try not to touch this palette too much because it made me paranoid, but I love all of these shades. I believe they're still available, and if other YouTubers collab with Itsy, then I'll definitely get those collabs. I didn't get the one with Coffee Break with Danny because they were just very bold colors. I do love her, so I didn't want to get it, but I just knew I wouldn't use those shades. Then I have another collab. It's Violet Voss and Laura Lee. You guys know I love Laura Lee. And this is an awesome palette as well. I did a review on it. The matte shades are not the best. Like, they're a little bit watered down or like not as pigmented. But the shimmer shades are so beautiful. This shade 1988 is gorgeous. I love doing this on the lid or Biddy as well and having like this like really bold sparkly look. You can definitely use all the matte shades. You just have to build them up a little bit more. So I love all the metallics in here, and I could do a lot of looks with this. This is actually like a go-to palette for me as well. I just pulled out one more palette from my eyeliner drawer. It was just in there because this is so tiny. But this is the Naked Basics palette by Urban Decay. This was the first high-end makeup item I've ever owned in my life. My mom got it for me for Christmas, 2013, I believe. And I was so obsessed with this. It took me like a month to use it because I just thought it was very like luxury because I had never owned anything other than a Maybelline Quad. And then I loved it to death. This actually broke. It fell off the counter, and that's how it ended up shattering. But this shade Naked 2, I would wear that in my crease every single day for like 6 months at least. I'd use it to contour before I had any other contouring palettes. I'd use it to contour my nose because it's more cool tone. And then Venus is such a pretty highlight shade. It has some of the black in there. So I just loved this palette to death. Like, if you are brand new to makeup and you want like barely there eyeshadow, you can build it up too, but you want something that's like super simple and you just want to kind of contour your eyes a little bit, this is an awesome palette. It's $30. It's really good on the go. Just don't drop it off of counters. So those are all of my eyeshadows. I love my eyeshadow palettes. Those are things that I basically like really cherish my collection because they just bring me a lot of joy. A lot of different palettes that I have I associate with like good memories, especially things that I use like for certain events or my wedding day and things like that. I just have like a sentimental attachment to a lot of my eyeshadows. These are all of my favorites. I expect the Bomb Nude palette to be one of my favorites, and I wanted to use it like pretty soon. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And then definitely let me know if any of my other palettes, if you guys want to see them in tutorials, especially on Instagram. I'm just going to try to do a lot more eyeshadow tutorials on Instagram. Let me know if you guys want to see any of these. I know some of them are limited edition, so I'm not sure what to do about that, but some of these, especially these, are permanent. So let me know if you guys have questions about any of them, or I hope it just helped you to know like what I am glad I got, and also things that I probably wish I didn't get or I just can live without, basically. So let me know if you guys have any questions on any of these palettes. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing my eyeshadow palette collection. As you can probably tell, I love eyeshadow palettes. I love talking about them. So if you guys have any recommendations for eyeshadow palettes, definitely let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.